I begin, I would like everyone to listen to the following statements and stand if a statement I say is true for you or someone you know. Please stand if you have ever felt alone or isolated. Please stand if you have ever felt bullied because of how you walk, talk, or speak. Please stand if you were born outside of the United States or if your parents or grandparents were from outside of the United States. I am standing with you. Please look around because I have experienced all of these things too. Thank you. Please sit down. I am here because I believe that all of us needs to put empathy at the center of our own identity. Empathy is the ability to understand another person's thoughts and feelings from their own point of view rather than your own. This differs from sympathy, which is when we feel sorry for another person. Both of these nouns share the same Greek root of pathos, which means feelings, emotions, or passion. Speaking of passion, compassion is when you care how another person feels, but you don't feel it yourself. Compassion calls on us to act and not just see how a person is feeling. Empathy is the link between yourself and others. The way you experience kindness and compassion. In other words, in order to understand and be understood, you must first yourself understand. Have you ever noticed that when there's a crisis, we are more readily able to be empathetic? Humans feel empathy when they view the distress of others. Often this leads to high levels of altruism. Unfortunately, when that crisis passes, it's too easy to step back into our own corners and see other people that are different than us as a threat. Babies cry when they hear other babies cry. I cry when I watch a sappy commercial. Dr. Doty, a neurosurgeon from Stanford University, says that empathy is hardwired into our species. We're born this way. And when we take care of each other, the pleasure centers of our brains light up. Altruism not only benefits others, but it benefits ourselves in terms of our own long-term health and longevity. So, although we're born with the capacity for kindness, that needs to be nurtured to be fully realized. We can teach ourselves to be compassionate even when empathy is hard to come by. One way is to find something you have in common with another person, just one. Another is to put yourself in those people's shoes and try to remind yourself that in order to be understood, you need to understand. Michelle Borba, an educational psychologist, says that if the number one trait kids need to be happy and to succeed is empathy, then that is what we all should listen to. It makes us better able to collaborate, innovate, problem solve, and by the way, it makes us happier too. Unfortunately, right now, we are in a serious empathy deficit known as the selfie syndrome. Today's kids, according to research, says that they are more self-absorbed than ever. Narcissism rates among college students are up 58% compared to where they were 3 decades ago. Why is this a problem? This has given us a culture of bullying, cheating, and overall unhappiness. 1 in 5 middle school students will choose and contemplate suicide as a means of dealing with peer cruelty. Teenagers who struggle with being empathetic are more self-absorbed and less caring towards others. And ironically themselves, they only focus on what they can receive themselves. 70% of college students have reported and admit to cheating in class. And 1/3 of college students say they feel so depressed that they can barely function in college. We need to make cultivating empathy a priority at home and at school. What's at stake? Everything. Everything for our children's future and our own. All you have to do is look at any social media site or controversial issue on the internet, and you will read hate-filled comments. Even our own political leaders are guilty and lacking empathy. Teens who are more empathetic do a better job dealing with and accepting failure because they have little ego involved, and their setbacks, while disappointing, are viewed not as failures, but as learning experiences. And you know what? That builds grit. Guiding teens towards being more empathetic is a process. The first part of that process is helping students recognize and understand how ordinary, everyday things, just like a smile, a simple hello, just touching base very quickly, even if you're in a hurry, can make a difference. We hear that over and over again. The second is to help teens recognize that they can help themselves by empowering themselves and others around them. As a school librarian, I have witnessed the power of empathy and empowerment among my high school students. I am so fortunate to be able to be the advisor of a service learning program called Book Buddies. 4 years ago, the Book Buddies program had nearly 30 high school students meeting with 15 preschool students and nearly 25 high school students working with 15 middle school students once a week. What did they do? They spent 30 to 60 minutes reading together. My daughter was in one of those first inaugural classes. High school students were empowering the younger students to read or read better, and the younger students were helping light up those altruistic pleasure centers of the high school students' brains. That one-to-one interaction and the attention of reading together helped through the eyes of a brand new 4 to 5-year-old reading maybe for the first time had a transformative effect on many of the high school students. Now, in our 4th year, we have grown to 125 high school students reading with 100 preschool students and over 30 middle school students reading with 25 middle school students. Week after week, for 12 weeks, during fall and very cold winter months, they come. They accumulated 1,200 hours of volunteer time reading together. One goal of empathy. As you can see in the pictures, they are doing precisely what Nobel Prize winner Albert Schweitzer said that the purpose of human life should be. And that is to serve and to show compassion and the will to help others. Reading is a heartwarming story for me. I'm a school librarian. But it's also helped me to see how the students that I work with in this Book Buddy program empower themselves and others around them. I want to be a book buddy. I want to be a book buddy. And it continues growing. In spite of the endless predictions that print books would be gone by now, guess what? They're still here. American readers have collectively and decisively decided to put down their screens and embrace print books. And students have repeatedly told me in my high school they don't want to curl up with a screen to read at night. They want a print book. Don't get me wrong. Ebooks, they're doing just fine. Millions of ebooks are being sold every year. And as a high school librarian, I purchase ebooks and audiobooks for my students. It's all about providing choice and format for the right book, for the right student, at the right time. And that's my version of the 3 R's. School libraries are in a very difficult place right now. I am very fortunate to work in a community that values me and the school library programs that we run. Unfortunately, school libraries all across the country are being cut and even eliminated. When funding gets short and tight, school libraries are oftentimes the first place to get cut. Yet, school libraries do so much more than hold warehouses of books and store data. They provide yet another window or opportunity for, guess what? Empathy. Reading encourages neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity affects your brain and brain development. Every time you learn something new, a new fact or skill, you change your brain. These changes take place all the time, and they happen to you no matter how old you are. And the single largest factor to changing your brain is behavior. And guess what? Empathy promotes positive social behavior by accommodating each other to feel similar emotions. Reading helps you become empathetic in so many ways. Reading enables you to meet new people you've never met that are different than you. That's what TED's all about. Reading takes you to places you've been or revisiting places and seeing new places for the first time. It broadens your horizons and links you to a world beyond your own community, your own bubble. Books hold hidden treasures. There's always something to learn. We need to create reading experiences that are enriching and encouraging. Books that are fun, silly, and just available for pleasure reading at school and at home. And I'm sorry, my English teachers, not just annotating. Technology should not replace a school library or a school librarian. Technology is great. I use it all the time. It's a tool. It's time to press the reset button on technology and change where education and humanity is going. We need to make our kids more empathetic. Testing and grades will not do that. Research proves that technology does not make students more empathetic. It is actually causing them to disconnect and lose the human aspect in sharing and feelings with others. Sure, there's social media, but it's not the human interaction in person that does it. Find out if your school library if your school has a library and a school librarian. And if they don't, do something about it. As I think about my experiences as a school librarian, and I think about my own children, ages 7 and 11 now, I'm more concerned than ever about our society and the need to put empathy at the center of our own identity. My daughter has triple X syndrome. This is a X chromosome variation, and I want to know that as she grows up, people will be empathetic to her various special needs. I want to know that she will not be bullied because how she looks, talks, or walks. Remember how many of you stood earlier. And looking ahead to the next school year, over the summer coming up, and in the future in general, wouldn't it be great if we made a reading and empathy pledge together? That we would be screen-free and maybe read 20 to 30 minutes every day? That after we read, we'd share what we read with someone and do something for someone else. And then we do it again and again every day. I would like us to choose to spend time away from our screens and spend it with others in person. Maybe Dr. Seuss had it right all along, long ago. The more that you learn, the more places, the more things that you will learn. The more things that you will learn, the more you will know, and the more that you know, the more you will grow. I have provided you all with a bookmark. I would like for you to get that bookmark out now. And I would like you to read with me one more time and pledge with me. The more that you read, the more things you will know. The more things you know, the more you will learn, the more places you will go.